All right, Chapter 2, Section 3, Capitalism and Free Enterprise. Okay, so some of this is a little bit of review from some things we've heard before. So if it sounds a little similar, that's on purpose. Okay, so when we are describing something called free enterprise economy, it must have these four things. There must be freedom in terms of what people do with their own money. When it comes to exchange of their money, all of those transactions should be as free as possible, or people choose to do that exchange. And also, in a free enterprise economy, there are property rights, meaning the things you own are yours. Now, we have in our Constitution, the Fifth Amendment, it says that whenever the government takes anything of value, that you will be justly compensated. So it's called eminent domain. It's the power of the government to take property, and they can do that, but they must pay fair market value for those products. So that's what keeps them from taking it unless they really need it. And then finally, there needs to be a profit motive, meaning we do things of value to society to earn money in order to buy products. So behind our work, there is a motive that's driven by profit. Okay, so we've already talked about the entrepreneur, but I just want to go back and talk about that a little bit more. And this person is, the entrepreneurs are very, very important to our society. Now, just because a person is an entrepreneur doesn't mean they're going to be successful at it. A lot of businesses do begin and shut down unsuccessfully. It doesn't go well for them, but what makes an entrepreneur successful? Typically, they have skills and abilities where they can organize and manage labor, those resources, land, labor, and capital, very effectively. And you just got to understand each of those resources. Sometimes you have to make a decision that benefits one over the cost of the other. And so those are hard decisions to make. Not all people are really suited to that sort of situation. So later on in the year, we'll be looking at all of the steps to start up your own business, and we'll be touching on that just to give you some of the concepts of being an entrepreneur. The idea is if we can just get one or two of you in this class to start a business, theoretically that would provide enough jobs to essentially employ the whole classroom. So that's how the system works. Because of voluntary exchange, nobody can force somebody to open a business, and so there needs to be a profit motive to encourage somebody to start a business. So we really need entrepreneurs, but it has to be a voluntary thing. Okay, all of us function as in the role of consumer, and in a consumer-based society, it's the consumers that determine whether products succeed or don't succeed. Way back in the 80s, Coca-Cola tried a new formula for their soda, and Coca-Cola's been around for quite a long time. And they did some market research, and this all came out of Pepsi. They had this little thing in the 80s called the Pepsi Challenge, and they had blind taste testing, and people were consistently picking Pepsi, but yet at the store, they were picking Coca-Cola. What they noticed is younger generations were choosing Pepsi, so that's why Pepsi took the slogan "Choice of a New Generation." And now Coca-Cola saw that they were losing market share to younger purchasers of the product, and so what they decided to do is let's scrap the old flavor, and let's do taste testing, and let's make a flavor that people are choosing. And so they did some research, they did surveys, people were picking it. Well, what they didn't realize is that it's not just the flavor. There's a certain expectation of a certain flavor with certain products. So Coca-Cola, instead of gaining market share, started to lose tremendous amounts of market share to other companies because people were loyal to the Coca-Cola brand. And so very shortly, I think it was about a year, Coca-Cola brought back Coca-Cola Classic, and for a time they were selling both types. And again, that's why when you look at a can of Coca-Cola now, it has Classic along the side, and that was to denote the difference between the regular Coca-Cola, the older kind, the traditional kind, versus the new flavor. Eventually, Coca-Cola phased out the new Coca-Cola, and that failure was because customers did not like it, and they expressed that by not purchasing the product. So if you don't like something, don't buy it, and the company will, if they're smart, they'll change to adapt to what customers actually want. There was a time back when Aztec, these things are still on the market. The Aztrek, and if you ever watch that show Breaking Bad, that's the car that the one dude has. And so this was an ugly car, but at the time it was ahead of its time. It was prior to the sport utility vehicles becoming very, very popular. And so the Aztrek was a commercial failure, didn't really do too well. Pepsi also tried something called Crystal Pepsi, not the actual crystal meth Pepsi, but the idea of it was a clear Pepsi. And again, this was in the 90s, prior to the whole outbreak of meth. This idea, it just did not work. People didn't like the idea of a clear. The idea was it was a clear Coke, clear Pepsi that tasted just like regular Pepsi. And again, customers just did not like that product. Okay, another role of in our society is the government, and it is impossible to have an effectively functioning market economy without the government doing their part. Okay, so when it comes to the system, the whole purpose of the government in a free market capitalistic system is to provide, to essentially be an agent for fairness in terms of individual people and how well they work together. Okay, so in terms of protecting one group of people from another group of people, or an individual from a group, promoting those products that are produced in America abroad to other countries. Okay, when in need, to provide basic services. Hurricane Katrina back in 2000s, there was a time there where immediately after the hurricane, there was a certain amount of lawlessness that was happening. It's this fella's famous picture stealing a whole bunch of jeans, and he's got a lot of money in his hands there actually. But at that moment, people were very angry that all this looting was happening, and people were just yelling, "Where are the police? Where is the military?" And it took time for them to get in there, and eventually, they brought in everything. And again, part of what the government does is to protect people's private property. That's the role of the government. When it comes to food safety, when we go to purchase food at a restaurant, things like that, we're relying on the government to ensure that the kitchen and the way the food is prepared is in a safe way. We're less likely to get sick. By the way, never eat at a restaurant that has a B rating. That's quite nasty. Okay, that ends our lecture for this chapter, Chapter 2, Section 3. Also, the first test will cover both chapters 1 and 2. Be sure to study both chapters, get into the book, take notes from the book, and to prepare yourself for this test.